10 years ago, a 19-year-old girl vanished from a small town in Oregon. No body, no suspect, no closure. I have spent 6 months investigating her case for my podcast, but the closer I get to the truth, the less I understand why I already know it. My name is Claire. I host a true crime podcast called Unsolved Voices. Every week, I dig into cold cases that police department gave up on years ago. 6 months ago, I started covering a case that changed everything. A girl named Hannah Ray disappeared exactly 10 years ago from a small town in Oregon. She was 19. She left her apartment one night to get gas for her car, and she never came home. No body, no suspect, no answers, just silence for 10 years. I thought it would make a great episode. I had no idea it would unravel my entire life. I started the way I always do: police reports, old news article, interview with anyone still willing to talk. Hannah's mother had passed away 3 years earlier, still waiting for her daughter to come home. Her father refused to speak to me. Her old friends barely remembered her, like she had faded out of their lives long before she disappeared. The part felt strange. Usually, when someone vanishes, people remember every little detail, but with Hannah, it was like talking to the people about a stranger. I kept digging anyway. That's the job. One night, going through an old digitalized yearbook, I found Hannah's senior photo. I stared at it for a long time. Something about her eyes felt familiar. I told myself it was just because I had been staring at case files for months. Faces started to blur together after a while, and I moved on. A week later, I drove out to Hannah's old town to record some on location audio for the episode. The gas station she disappeared from, her old apartment building, the diner she used to work at. I didn't need directions. I told my producer it was because I have studied the map so much. But standing outside the gas station, I felt my hands shake without knowing why. I walked into the diner where Hannah used to work. The owner, an old woman, looked at me for a long moment before saying, "You look so much like someone who used to come in here." "Probably Hannah," I said. "That's why I'm here." She shook her head slowly. "No, honey, not her. Someone else." I didn't think much of it at the time. I chalked it up to an old woman's fading memory. That night, back at my hotel, I went through old phone records I had requested from Hannah's case file. Routine stuff, checking for any unanswered leads. There was one voicemail on the list, left the last week Hannah's disappeared, that had never been answered or listened to by any investigators. It had been sitting in an old evidence archive for 10 years. I put on my headphones and pressed play. The message was scratchy, filled with static. A young woman voice panicked, talking fast. "If anyone finds this, I don't think I can keep doing this anymore. I don't think I am safe here. If something happened to me, please don't let them just forget about me. Please don't let them forget about me." And I sat there frozen because that voice sounded exactly like mine. I told myself it was a coincidence. Voices can sound alike. I had been listening to this case for months. Maybe my brain was playing tricks, matching patterns that weren't really there. But I couldn't stop listening to that voicemail over and over, late into the night. I called my producer the next morning, my voice shaking, asking her to pull my own personal file from the podcast network, background check, ID verification, anything on record. She called back an hour later, confused. "Claire, there's nothing here," she said. "No background check on file, no ID scan. You started 3 years ago, but there's nothing before that. It's like you didn't exist before this podcast." I laughed it off on the phone, but my hand wouldn't stop shaking. I drove straight to Hannah's old apartment building that same afternoon. I don't remember deciding to go there, but I just remember standing outside the door before I understood why I had came. The building manager, an old man, recognized me the second I walked in. Not as a podcast host, not as a journalist working a case. He recognized me as her. Hannah, he said, his face going pale. We thought you were gone 10 years and you were never came back for your things. I stood there in a hallway, my whole body cold. My name is Claire, I said. My voice barely came out. She shook his head slowly. No, your name is Hannah Ray. I signed your lease myself. He led me down the hall to apartment 4B. The door was still sealed with an old, faded police tape, barely hanging on after 10 years. He handed me a key. I don't know how my hands remember exactly how to turn it. Inside, the apartment was frozen in time, dust over everything, a calendar on the wall, still open to the same month 10 years ago, and on the desk by the window, a small tape recorder, exactly like the one I used for interviews today. I pressed play. My own voice came out of the speaker, younger, more scared. It was my voice. Day 47. I think someone been in my apartment while I am out. I am going to start recording everything just in case if something happened to me. I want there to be a record. I want someone to remember. I don't want to just disappear and have everyone forget I was ever here. I sat down on a dusty floor of that apartment, my whole body shaking, and I finally understood. There was no missing girl I had been investigating for 6 months. There was only me, Hannah, who had broken 10 years ago under something so terrifying I couldn't survive it at myself. My mind built a new person to escape what happened in this apartment. A new name, a new job, a new life, entirely separate from the girl who vanished. I built an entire podcast around solving my own disappearance, interviewing people who used to know me, standing in my own apartment, listening to my own recorded voice, and never once recognized myself because Claire was never supposed to remember Hannah at all. I don't know what happened to this apartment 10 years ago. I don't know why my mind buried it so deep that I built a whole career trying to dig it back up. But somewhere in the back of my mind tonight, I can still hear that first voicemail playing. Please don't let them forget about me. I didn't forget Hannah. I just became someone else so I wouldn't have to remember.